thinking about buying a home, but you're not sure how long it takes? From your first home search to getting the keys, the process can move fast or take months. Let's walk through the full timeline so you know exactly what to expect. So how long does it take to buy a home? The home buying timeline varies, but here's a general breakdown. You have your prep and research time, which takes about 1 to 3 months and sometimes more depending on your situation. We'll talk about some of the variables a little later on in the video. Then there's house hunting, which takes around 1 to 3 months. This can be shorter or longer. It really depends on your local market, the inventory, meaning what homes are available, and what you're looking for. If you're looking for something super specific, it could take a while. Then there's contract to close, which is typically 30 to 45 days for most situations. If you're getting a USDA direct loan, it typically takes 90 days to close on the home. So all in all, the fast end of how long it takes to buy a home could be anywhere from 60 to 75 days. I think the fastest I've personally seen someone close is about 35 days. That's from getting approved, house hunting, and closing. But to be clear, they already had their finances in order. On the long end, it could take 6 to 12 months or even longer. The better prepared you are, the smoother and faster the process will be. So what can you do to make your transaction quicker and smoother? First is financial prep. You want to review your FICO credit score and your budget. If you have a 740 FICO score, you might be able to get the best interest rates. However, if you're around 640, you should still be able to qualify for most mortgages. Under 620, you might still qualify, but you'll have fewer lender options and your interest rate could be higher. That's why working on your credit score ahead of time can make a big difference. But don't worry, there are options out there like the FHA loan. You can have a credit score in the 500s and still qualify for FHA. What you want to do in this financial prep stage is pay down any debt if needed. One of the important factors that determine if you can afford a home is your debt to income ratio, or DTI. Your DTI is the amount of money you make versus the amount of money you spend. If your DTI is too high, you may not be able to buy a home. That's why it's important to reduce your debt if you're able to. You also want to start saving for a down payment, closing costs, and moving expenses. The amount of the down payment is going to depend on your situation and what loan you plan on applying for. Typically, you'll need anywhere from 3 to 20% of the purchase price for a down payment. For closing costs, it's usually around 2 to 6% of the purchase price. For moving expenses, it could be around $1,000 or more for a local move. For an out-of-town move, it could be a few $1,000s. Because of all these factors, this could push out your preparation time. If you need to work on your credit or pay down some debt, that could take longer than 3 months. It just depends on your situation. The sooner you can talk to a lender, the better. Even if you're not ready to buy a home tomorrow, they can start to look at your financial health, your credit score, your DTI, and other factors that can affect your chance of approval. Getting pre-approved to find out what you can afford is important. Just a quick note, typically when you're given a pre-approval amount, it's the maximum amount you can afford. You'll want to look at your budget to see what makes the most sense for you. You typically don't want to spend your maximum amount. You can go to my website at workwithdang.com for free resources like a quick start home buying guide and a home buyer's course. I can help you find a real estate agent in your area. There's more information on my website. Then you'll want to find the right home. You can start your research online using websites like Zillow, Realtor.com, and Redfin. There are many other sites out there too. You could work with a real estate agent to get showings and access to off-market homes sometimes. You'll want to tour homes and compare prices. It can be helpful to make a list of your must-haves and deal breakers. You might also need to be prepared for competition. Some homes can go under contract very fast. Ask your real estate agent how competitive the market is for the type of home you're looking to buy. In a hot market, homes sell in just a few days. In a cooler market, you'll have some time to think. Then you'll want to make an offer, which can last around 1 to 5 days. Once you find a home, you'll want to move quickly to make an offer, especially if you're in a competitive market. You'll work with your real estate agent to run comps and draft your offer. You may go through some negotiation with the seller. That's why this stage can take up to 5 days, and sometimes more depending on how much back and forth there is. Then you go under contract. The contract to closing phase is typically 30 to 45 days like I mentioned earlier. So here's what happens once your offer is accepted. The first step is usually the home inspection. Depending on what your contract says, you'll want to schedule it within a day or two of getting the contract signed. You might have up to 7 to 10 days to get the inspection done, but check with your agent to confirm. This can vary. The home inspection is optional, but I always recommend it. You can negotiate repairs or credits based on the inspection results. Then there's the appraisal, which is usually ordered and completed around a week or two after going under contract. Sometimes it can take closer to 3 weeks to get your appraisal back. Loan processing is ongoing during the entire time you're under contract. It usually takes 30 to 45 days, but like I mentioned earlier, if you're using the USDA direct loan, it could take up up to 90 days. Next is homeowner's insurance. Typically, it has to be secured before closing. I recommend choosing a homeowner's insurance company sooner rather than later. You can get quotes after you've completed the home inspection. That way, you'll know if there are any issues with the home that could make it uninsurable in its current condition. If the home isn't insurable, your lender may not approve the loan, so it's a good idea to get quotes early. Then there's a title search, which is usually done around the 2-week mark after going under contract. After that, you'll get your final loan approval, which usually comes about a week before closing, sometimes 4 or 5 days before, and sometimes even less. During the loan process, make sure you don't make any big financial changes. If you have any questions, it's best to speak with your lender since they know your specific situation. But typically, you can't go out and buy a car or something like that before you close on the home. Then comes the final walkthrough, which is usually done 24 to 48 hours before closing. What you're doing here is checking to make sure the home is in the agreed upon condition. In my transactions, I usually do the final walkthrough with the buyer about 24 to 48 hours before closing. That way, if we do notice any issues, I can start talking to the listing agent to try to get things resolved before closing day. Then on the day of closing, right before I head to the closing table, I like to do one more final walkthrough. I invite the buyers to come along to make sure everything still looks good before they sign the paperwork. So what are some things that can delay the timeline? If you have a lower credit score, that could delay things. It might make more sense to take a little time to work on your credit before getting pre-approved. Also, missing paperwork can slow things down. If your pre-approval expires, you'll need to send in updated documentation, which can delay things slightly. When you first get pre-approved, ask how long it lasts and make a note of that. When you're getting close to the expiration date, reach out to your lender to get it renewed in advance. There can also be seller delays or title issues, which unfortunately are outside of your control. The appraisal could come in low and you might need to negotiate with the seller to lower the price. That can add a few days and potentially delay the process. If any repairs are needed after the inspection and they can't be completed in time, that can also push things back. Now let's talk about what you can do to speed up the process. Get pre-approved before house hunting like we talked about earlier. Have all of your documents ready and organized, things like pay stubs, W-2s, and tax returns. Work with a proactive real estate agent and lender. You'd be surprised how many times I've heard of people not being able to get in touch with their lender or agent, and that can really slow things down. And finally, be flexible with your closing time if it helps you win the deal. Sometimes sellers are trying to move quickly, and if you're able to close early, being flexible can help your offer stand out. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you've gotten any value from this video. It helps me out a lot.